the Dark Lord himself, Sauron, the most integral character of the Second Age, and also in the Rings of Power in his form of Narrator. It is often hard to tackle a character of such importance and might, and we have seen one version in the Rings of Power in Halbrand. So what went right, what didn't work, and most importantly, what are the challenges / decisions you have to make around the main villain? Mostly, in this episode we will talk about Sauron during the earlier periods of the Second Age, when he was Narrator the Lords of Gifts, as this is mainly the period we see in Season 1 of the Rings of Power. Make sure to like and subscribe. Firstly, canon-wise, what do we know about Sauron during this period? Well, around 1200 of the Second Age, he came in the form of Narrator, an apparent emissary of the Valar, but got rejected in Lindon by High King Gil-galad, but found more success in Eregion, the realm of the craftsmen, governed by Celebrimbor. He slowly gains the trust of Celebrimbor and ends up crafting Rings of Power with the Gwythae Modain. Then suddenly he leaves, and in Mount Doom the One Ring is forged and Narrator reveals himself as Sauron all along. Then in reaction to this, Celebrimbor forges the 3 Elven Rings, which doesn't have the taint of Sauron importantly. So this is mainly the story of Sauron during that period and what we do know, and to be fair, there isn't that much written. So what did the showrunners McPain do? We get a human form of Sauron, an idea and topic that, to be fair, the professor himself meddled and theorized with, but did not fully substantiate. This is of course Halbrand, and we first see him out at sea and on a shipwreck, whilst also running from his past importantly. This raises the first big question in handling Sauron. Pure evil or repenting and sympathetic in nature? This is the main question. Recently in modern media, there has been an influx of having sympathetic villains or evil characters who funnily enough aren't completely evil. Or do you revert to a traditional villain like Sauron was, an evil villainous tyrant who the audience should not sympathize for in the Lord of the Rings trilogies and in the books? The show, interestingly, in marketing and even in dialogue, mentioned Elrond's line from the Lord of the Rings, "Nothing is evil in the beginning," and Amazon did clearly take this route with Sauron in the form of Halbrand. He is running from his past, even admits his guilt to Galadriel in the scene when talked about the death of her brother Finrod, and despite being Sauron, he is so courageous and brave, even saving people in Teherad village during the attack. So this shows that at least for a bit he was potentially leaving his past life behind, and maybe partly thanks to Galadriel. At the start of the Second Age, was this the correct and right way to handle Sauron? Despite this being a generalization in Tolkien's works, it is generally good versus evil and right versus wrong. There is a more of a clear line, and by the beginning of the Second Age, would Sauron really have been in a repenting form? Or should we instead have gotten a classic villain who we want to root against? I would have preferred the second one, and instead have a dignified and clear evil and have that tension of evil rising and returning build up across the season. At the same time, trying to add that extra nuance to Sauron and have him be more engaging story-wise would make more sense to me as to why McPain went down the Halbrand route, so I don't really hold that against them. Of course, another reason as to why we got Sauron in the Halbrand form is, as mentioned in the last video, the guessing game and a big surprise at the end, which I personally did not prefer. In context to the Second Age, that is all around 500 to 1200 of the Second Age, around the time when Sauron returned to Mount Doom, and then he enters Eregion as Narrator the Lord of Gifts. To compare this to the Rings of Power, for this part, we got an injured Sauron riding on a horse with Galadriel to get medicine and treatment in Eregion, to then after 40 minutes in episode 8 somehow convinces Celebrimbor and manipulates him. Yes, Celebrimbor and Narrator working together and manipulating him did happen, but this should have built up over multiple episodes or even a season, but instead we got it rushed at the end of the finale. There is a reason why McPain did this, as they said, quote, "We wanted him to come into the narrative in an unexpected way, because if you sort of think about the obvious way, instead of a demigod like Narrator shows up and says, 'Let me help you with all your problems by making some rings,' who's going to believe that?" Seemingly, this suggests that they did not want to approach the Annatar reaching a region and convincing Celebrimbor into making rings, because the fans would have already known it is Annatar and the action itself is not believable. The second age is a brief outline and saw these events, so there are warranted reasons for adding more stuff to make this a fleshed out narrative. McPain have technically achieved that. But by not doing the Annatar seducing Celebrimbor story because A, the fans will know Annatar Sauron, and instead working a way around to try and fool everyone. For example, what happened in episode 8 where Celebrimbor, the greatest craftsman of the age, doesn't really think of using alloys, and the whole seducing phase happening in under 20 minutes of screen time. Despite us fans knowing what is going to happen in the Annatar Sauron, seeing Annatar over a number of episodes seduce and manipulate Celebrimbor and result in that betrayal would have been much better. Ultimately, we are fans because we enjoy the content. The content we like is then replicated on screen. We'll still be happy and excited seeing our favourite moments and storylines, and then for the general viewers they would of course be surprised, just like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Someone can easily counter this and fair enough say there is virtually nothing written about this in the second age and they have to make stuff up or reconstruct it. This is correct, but add this stuff around the main narrative and plot point of Annatar coming to Eregion as an emissary of the Valar. The showrunners even speak about desperation for the characters wanting Annatar's help, as opposed to them blindly believing him with, quote,
"People don't make devil's bargains because they're stupid.
They make it because they are desperate." This is in fact a good example of how the showrunners are taking the bare bones of this timeline and adding more content to piece together and make this whole event narratively make sense. And they could have still done this by keeping the primary event, Annatar seducing Celebrimbor and creating the dwarven and human rings. Instead, the backbone here was a repenting Sauron who becomes attached to Galadriel and due to the demands of the plot ends up in Eregion in the season finale.
Whatever it was he did to you.
But despite the timeline being altered now, with the 3 elven rings made first, there is still hope, as in season 2 we know this will be Sauron's story and maybe we will get Annatar back in Eregion with Celebrimbor. But even if we do, unfortunately I don't think we will get too much time, as at the end of season 1 Halbrand is in Mordor, probably there for episode 1 and episode 2. Then we have the middle episodes where he could be with Celebrimbor and we could see more of their relationship, but then we have this 2-episode battle which probably be near the later end of the season. Let us know what you think of how Sauron was adapted in season 1. Did you like the character choices and traits, or would you have preferred a more traditional Tolkien-esque villain? Also, what is your thoughts on the Annatar ring forging storyline and how that was adapted? Make sure to like and subscribe. Until the next video my friends, goodbye.